Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. And whenever you are, welcome to my podcast, The Devil and the Deep Blue Me, and I am your host, Rich Bruck. And I'm so glad you could make it, because this is it, our Season 2 finale of Things I Wish I Knew. And, we've covered a lot of ground, from choosing battles to navigating stubbornness, from the myth of effortless success to the silent saboteur of overthinking. And it feels fitting to end this season on a topic that ties so many of these little lessons together. A topic that's been a central theme in my own life anyway. The art of reinvention. Because, you're never too old to start over. And if there's one thing I truly wish I knew when I was younger, it's that life is less about finding your one true path and more about the courage to redraw the map when you need to. We're often fed this narrative that life is a straight line, You pick a career and you stick with it, you achieve your goals, you retire, and then you're done. But for most of us, life is a winding, convoluted path with unexpected detours and dead ends and abrupt new beginnings. And for a long time, I used to feel a real sense of anxiety when things didn't go according to that linear plan. If a band broke up, or if a project didn't pan out, or if I found myself in a completely different spot than I ever had imagined, it felt like a failure, like I was behind, like I'd missed my shot. And I remember thinking, at my age now, it's way too late to try that. Or I've always been this kind of musician and I can't suddenly be that kind. And we get so stuck in our past identities, our past roles, that we fail to see the potential for what we could become. It's kind of like a rock band refusing to change its sound after its first album, even when the entire world around them has moved on. You wither. And that thought, that fear of being too old or too established in one role to try something new is such a powerful inhibitor. It stops so many people from pursuing their true desires, from taking that leap into the unknown. What I've learned, often by sheer necessity, is that reinvention isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign of resilience. It's a sign of growth. It's the art of adapting and learning and having the guts to pivot whenever it feels terrifying. and sometimes those pivots, they lead you to exactly where you were meant to be all along. My entire adult life has been a series of reinventions, often without me even realizing it at the time. For decades, I was the sidekick, a member in a band, supporting another singer, playing my guitar and laying down the foundation. My identity was tied to being part of something and never the singular front man. And that was comfortable. It was familiar. It was my role. And then there came a point, just under 2 years ago, when the opportunity arose for me to release my own music, to take center stage, so to speak. And it was the beginning of this podcast too. And it felt like a really huge leap. It felt like a last attempt at trying to make something for myself in my music. And it was a fundamental reinvention. And it was terrifying. I had all the old voices in my head, Who are you to be the front man? You've always been the guitar player in the background, and you're too old for this. But there was also a deep drive, a sense of now or never. And what I wish I knew then, looking back at the moment, is that the past doesn't define your future. Your history provides experience and skills, but it doesn't chain you to a single identity. The sidekick became a center stage artist, not by magic, but by embracing the unknown, by learning new skills like figuring out the podcast world and promoting my own stuff and having the courage to shed an old skin. And it was incredibly freeing to realize that. You know, I think about that moment a lot, actually, standing in my studio, looking at the recording equipment that I had used for years to support other people's visions and suddenly thinking, what if this time is for me? And there was this mix of excitement and absolute terror because when you step out from behind the safety of being the support, you're suddenly vulnerable in a completely different way. When you're a sidekick, the backup, the foundation, you know, if something doesn't work, well, you can always point to the leader. But when it's your name on the project and your voice carrying the melody, your vision driving the whole thing, that's when you realize what courage actually means. I remember recording my very first solo track, and after I laid down the vocals, you know, something I had done 1,000 times for other people, I just sat there in silence afterward thinking, this is either going to be the best thing I've ever done, or I'm about to make a complete fool of myself. And you know what? Both of those things can be true at the exact same time. That's the beautiful, terrifying paradox of reinvention. But here's what really gets me emotional when I think about it. And this is something I wish I'd understood years earlier. Is that every single skill that I developed as a sidekick, every moment of supporting other artists, every time I held back my own creative impulses to serve someone else's vision, none of that was wasted time. It was all prep. It was all building toward this moment when I'd finally have the courage and the skill set to step forward. And I think we often view our past selves as separate people. Like old Rich was the backup musician and new Rich is the solo artist. But I don't think that's how it works. New Rich exists because of old Rich. Every late night in rehearsal rooms, every time I bit my tongue when I had a creative idea, every moment I chose to be the steady, reliable foundation, that all contributed to who I am now. The difference is that now I've learned to honor both the foundation builder and the visionary. This art of reinvention isn't just about big career shifts, though. It's about personal growth, too. As a longtime music teacher, I've had countless conversations with students, both young and old, and sometimes it's not about them wanting to become a famous musician, but about them wanting to pick up an instrument that they dropped decades ago, or maybe they're in their 40s and their 50s feeling stuck in a job and they're wondering if it's too late to learn a new skill or pursue a passion, or even start a whole new chapter. I remember I had this student once, I think her name was Linda, and she was 50s, mid-50s, late 50s, and she came into me wanting to learn guitar. She'd always wanted to play, but life got in the way. Kids, career, marriage, divorce, caring for aging parents. You know, the usual suspects that steal our dreams if we let them. And she sat in my studio that very first lesson, holding a guitar like it might bite her. And she said, you know, Rich, I feel ridiculous. I should have done this when I was young. And I looked at her and I said, you think your 25-year-old self had more time than you do now? You think she had less fear? Do you think she knew herself any better? Because here's the thing, and this is what I try to convey to all my students, and as well as, you know, something I really wish I knew myself. Age isn't a limitation when it comes to learning and growing. It's an advantage. Your accumulated life experience actually makes you better equipped for reinvention, not less. You know, in your late 50s, Linda knew what she wanted and why she wanted it in a way that her 25-year-old self would never have known. She'd lived through enough to understand that time is precious, that dreams deferred aren't dreams denied, and that starting late is infinitely better than never starting at all. And 6 months later, she was playing songs around a campfire with her grandkids. And a year later, she joined a local community band. And then 2 years later, she was writing her own songs about divorce and resilience and finding yourself in the second half of your life. And you know what she told me? She said, Rich, I'm a better musician at 55 or 56 or whatever than I ever would have been at 25 because I have something to say now. That story gets to me because it reflects something I've learned about myself through this whole journey. What I wish I knew then is that reinvention isn't about becoming someone completely different. It's about becoming more of who you are meant to be. It's all about integrating your past experience into a new, expanded version of yourself. It's about understanding that every ending is a new beginning and every closed door can lead to an open field. When I started this podcast, I wasn't becoming a different person. I was becoming a more complete version of the person I had always been. The guy who always had thoughts and opinions about music, about life, about the things that matter. He was always there, but for years I'd only let him out in small doses, in conversation with close friends, teaching moments with students. This podcast, this step into being the person whose voice you hear every week, that wasn't me putting on a mask. That was me finally taking one off. And that's terrifying, by the way. When you've spent years being comfortable in a supporting role, stepping into the spotlight feels like standing naked in front of a bunch of strangers. Every episode of this podcast, especially in the beginning, felt like I was saying, well, here's who I really am, here's what I really think, and here's what matters to me, and then waiting to see if anyone would care, if anyone would listen, if anyone would want to connect with the more authentic version of myself. But here's what I've discovered, and this is the heart of what I wish I'd known earlier. People don't connect with your perfection. They connect with your truth. They connect with your struggles and your growth, your willingness to be vulnerable. And when I was the sidekick, I was safe, but I was also invisible in a lot of ways. When I stepped forward, when I became put myself in the center, I became visible, which meant I could be seen, but also judged and criticized and rejected. But it also meant I could truly be known. The road and academic schooling that I've had, all the years of teaching, all the sessions supporting other artists, it all contributes to who I am now. It doesn't limit me. Every conversation I've had with a struggling student, every night I've spent perfecting a guitar part for somebody else's song, every moment I've chosen to put music and growth and connection ahead of ego. All of that is part of what makes this podcast even possible. What makes my solo music authentic. What makes this reinvention feel like a natural evolution rather than a desperate pivot. And you know what the hardest part of reinvention is? It's not learning new skills, even though that is challenging. And it's not fear of failure, though that is very real. The hardest part is forgiving yourself for not doing it sooner. The hardest part is making peace with all the years you spent being less than your fullest self. All the opportunities you passed up because you didn't think you were ready. All the dreams you deferred because you were waiting for permission that was never going to come. I spent years thinking, someday when I'm good enough, when I'm confident enough, when the timing is right, then I'll step forward. But here's what I wish I'd known. You don't get confident and then take action. You take action and then get confident. You don't wait until you're ready for reinvention. You start the reinvention and discover what you're capable of along the way. So the reflection here is this. You are certainly never too old to learn, to grow, to pivot, or to start over. The art of reinvention is the art of staying alive and staying curious, of refusing to be confined by past roles or perceived limitations, It's about showing up for the next chapter, even if you don't have the whole script yet. It's about trusting that who you've been has prepared you for who you're becoming, even if you can't see that connection yet. And if you're listening to this thinking, yeah, but it's easy for you to say now that you've done it. And, yeah, sure, you're right. It's much easier to preach courage from the other side of the leap, but I'm not telling you it's easy. I'm just telling you it's possible. I'm telling you it's worth it. I'm telling you that the person you're becoming is already inside you, waiting for you to be brave enough to let them out. Anyway, I think now is time for a little enrichment. Speaking of changing and transforming and surprising yourself, here are some facts that might make you reconsider what's possible. So did you know that a caterpillar completely liquefies itself inside its cocoon before transforming into a butterfly? So, talk about a radical reinvention. It literally dissolves into soup before becoming something entirely new. Makes our career changes seem pretty manageable by comparison, don't you think? The Eiffel Tower actually grows taller in the summer. The heat causes the iron to expand, making it up to 6 inches taller. Proof, by the way, that even solid structures can change and grow under the right conditions. Humans are the only animals that blush. It's a completely involuntary physical reaction. So the next time you feel a flush of embarrassment about trying something new, just know that it's uniquely human and a very good sign of vulnerability and growth. I don't know how many will even know this name, but Colonel Sanders was 65 when he franchised KFC. He had failed at dozens of jobs. He was a farmer, a streetcar conductor, an insurance salesman, even a lawyer briefly, but he finally found his calling with that secret recipe that became so famous. So now, talk about a late blooming reinvention success story. We should all take note of that one. See, change is all around us in the most surprising ways. And if a caterpillar can dissolve itself completely and still become a butterfly, what the hell is stopping you from your next reinvention? And finally, a little music check-in. As we wrap up this season, I've been working on some, I've been working on all the songs that I've been talking about up until this point, and they're all coming along. But I don't know if it was the podcast or what it was, the support from you guys. I'm not sure what it was, but I can't seem to finish anything because I keep getting all these ideas, and I've been releasing songs this whole time, once a month, and none of which were any that I had ever talked about during this whole season. So I'm going to give you the credit. I'm going to thank you for the inspiration and the encouragement and all the ideas that I mentioned, all the stuff I've been working on up until now. I'm sure that they'll develop into something, but I certainly don't want to stop the creative train. As long as it's going to plow on through, I want to make sure that I'm holding on for dear life and take whatever I can get from it. So that's my little music check-in, kind of a shout out to you guys for giving me a bunch of stuff that, I probably never would have come up with. So thank you. Thank you all very, very much. I appreciate it. So then, the art of reinvention, because you're never too old to start over. The big wish I knew that wraps up this season is very simple. You have the power to redefine yourself at any stage of your life. Every experience, every setback, every past role is just fuel for your next evolution. Don't let perceived age or past identities hold you back from becoming more of who you are meant to be. All right. And that, my friends, is the end of season 2, the end of episode 12, and the great season finale. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. I had a really good time. It was kind of therapy, kind of, stuff I'd known, but just a check-in to make sure that I was still practicing, what I'm supposed to be practicing, that sort of thing. It's really been an incredible journey, actually. I genuinely appreciate you guys tuning in each week and your messages and your support and your love. It was awesome. And I really, really appreciate it. And I thank you, honestly, from the bottom of my heart. So thank you. I am going to be taking a little bit of a short break to regroup and plan what I'm going to do for season 3. But I think I'll be back with more reflections and more stories and more things that I wish I knew. But until then, keep reinventing, keep rocking, and keep showing up for yourself. Thank you so much for joining me, and have yourself a safe and happy week, month, however long until I see you again.